Welcome to Season 9 of The Sonic Truth, brought to you by Veritonic in partnership with AW360. This season, we're diving into connected TV, the fastest growing force reshaping advertising and marketing today. Because right now, the brands that win aren't the ones shouting the loudest. They're the ones that understand what truly moves audiences and can prove it. And we're bringing in the people driving the biggest shifts in CTV, advertising, and marketing. The leaders, the innovators, and the voices redefining how impact gets made. Let's get into the conversation.
Welcome to the Sonic Truth podcast. Today we have Mike Brooks. I don't know how to describe Mike. I got a front row seat to everything CTV. We're going to cover a lot of different aspects of connected television, advertising, many other things. Mike, welcome to the Sonic Truth podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Scott. I am thrilled to be here.
All right. Well, I'm thrilled as well. I think we're going to learn a lot today. This will be a fun conversation. You've got so many different angles to talk about. But first, let's get into you. I'm going to hear about you. So give us the Mike Brooks origin story, the kind of backstory, and kind of, from the day you were born, maybe a little later, but to how you got here today.
Fabulous. So my story, we'll skip a lot of the birth and post stuff, but my digital story, we'll say, started at AOL. So from 2012, pretty much up until I joined LG in 2023, 2024, I was always focused on the mobile app world. So one of the first big challenges in my career came when advertising.com was trying to bring the mobile app ecosystem into its network. And a lot of that demand was coming from the Ubers and the Candy Crushes of the world who needed to figure out how to scale user acquisition for apps. And that challenge early on in 2013 has really defined a lot of the evolution I've experienced as I was at AOL, and Verizon acquired us. So then we started managing the preload business onto Verizon Android system. So the world of mobile app and the closed loop ecosystem and the programmatic backing and the role of the algorithm have all been like day one things that have always driven the way I see media, but it's always been digital and mobile and 320 by 50s. If you fast forward AOL, I then went to be CRO, CMO at WeatherBug, which is a mobile app based in the US, which was a fabulous 4-year experience where instead of helping apps grow, I was that app that was able to grow. So I got to manage both marketing and revenue, so programmatic and sales and operations, and understand what it takes to double the business of an app, which we were fortunate to be able to do. So again, like mobile app. And then I went to ad tech again, where I was COO at Verve Group, which was really like an ad tech roll up holding company. So we owned supply businesses like Smarto, PubNative, Verve, and Liquid, which were mobile and CTV. And my job was to manage the senior leaders who were managing those business units. So again, always focused on closed loop, programmatic, digital. And then in the very beginning of 24, I joined LG Ad Solutions to be the kind of first head of business development. So in that world, the goal was to take a lot of the learnings from the app world and the closed ecosystem world, because I kind of looked at it and said, hey, isn't a TV just kind of a big app store? And kind of take some of that learning and bring it into the way we thought about measurement, identity, data, creative at ACR. So bringing some of those mobile digital DNA components into the way we thought about growing the business. That's what I spent 2 years at LG doing. And we'll talk a little bit about it, but the future is going to be a lot about that convergence of these media markets and demand sources that till maybe the past couple months have been disparate in people's minds.
Right. And that's first off, you've dealt with some massive companies. Like I don't think people realize. I don't know how the age range of our viewers and listeners. Like first off, AOL massive, Verizon massive, WeatherBug massive. I mean, this is like these are as big as it gets in their day. Obviously, LG is a massive company. One just quick kind of little side question, like how hard is it to get things done? Right, because these are very fast moving technologies. Right? These are not small things, right? Like also you that era you spoke about went from like desktop to a mobile device to a mobile app, which is again not a small transition. How did you get things done at massive companies with technology moving that fast? That's a question I have to ask.
I mean, fabulous question. Um, you have to create focus and internal branding and
Mm,
critical mass and understanding with leadership of where this fits in once it's successful. So I had that challenge at AOL when we were spinning the mobile app business up, and everyone said, why bother? Is this really going to be a thing? Um, I had that, throughout my career when trying to, move big groups, but you have to get the alignment, and you also have to get everyone on board with the vision. So, I'll tell you about a story that when I was at LG, when we were spinning up the performance business, um, but again, we'll talk about this. A lot of folks, DNA wise, come from a world of TV and incremental reach and GRPs. So the world
mm.
of CPA and CPI in mobile was kind of foreign. And getting everyone to understand the opportunity, how is it similar? How is it different across the whole executive team and the VP level? It required a lot of teaching and making sure that the story was sound. And getting everybody bridged to from where they are from TV or mobile mindset to where you think the business is going to be most successful. So um, it's a lot about moving the people that you need to move, but also making sure what's working underneath really makes sense and is executed well.
That is a master class in getting things done. I'm gonna steal some of that. That is it's really hard. And it's like getting people to buy into a vision that they haven't seen yet, that they might be inherently skeptical about, and that holds real risk.
Yeah,
Because obviously, like, look at just AOL as an example, right? AOL did a lot of different things that a lot of them worked, a lot of them didn't. But when you're at that altitude, there's a long way to fall. And so getting things wrong can also be really more. There's more gravity to that, but also people, the personal risk at a company of that size. A lot of people don't like to stick their necks out,
right.
and so it can really hard to get. But I think getting people to buy into that vision is a hard thing to do. So as we kind of transition forward to a little bit now, talk about like buying into a vision. Let's get a little more into like what's happening now, right? So you kind of coming out of LG, we've got this universe where connected television is doing a lot of different things. It's got a lot of the DNA of the universe and kind of backstory that you just described, right? It's got a lot of the DNA of mobile. It's got a lot of the DNA of apps. It's got a lot of the DNA of digital, obviously. So set the stage for us of kind of what you're seeing in this kind of next phase for CTV and kind of what's happening now and what we can expect.
Absolutely. I think that I would make a slight edit and say that maybe CTV is starting to have more of a digital backbone, but it's still historically, I would argue, a non-digital business. So I'll kind
Right.
of
So
explain.
the press kind of because I feel like when you read about this, right, and you people like me, not that I wouldn't classify myself as a talking head. I just do this as a hobby. But like it's just like, and a lot of the marketing, right, is by like digital. But you from the inside out feel that that's maybe is that a little too much? It's still like it's more TV than maybe the market thinks.
Yeah. So if you think about 15s and 30s and CTV, and let's take an LG for example, like when TV buyers are used to linear, what is it that LG and OEMs who are coming onto the scene can do to access budgets? You have linear on one side, you have digital on the other. The
Mm,
choice was made to go after linear. So folks in linear care about GRPs, they care about incremental reach, And the products that were derived off of core assets like ACR data were aimed that direction. So
Mm.
the product was one of the core products in the OEM quiver is ACR data and incremental reach thereon. Um, and that that is a that is not necessarily a digital mindset, right? Digital mindsets are focused on user-based performance and measurement, or as close as you can get. It's based
Right.
on closed feedback loops and things that are revenue generating, and they try and get as close to the point of sale as possible. And historically, TV and CTV hasn't cared as much about that. They focused on bringing the linear money over into CTV more so than they focused on taking digital money and bringing it up. So I think that's where we are today, but that is,
Mm.
we'll talk about it. That's changing aggressively um, on both the perspective of TV people getting more into digital and performance, but I think more
Right.
importantly, the digital people are coming at the gates and bringing strong optimization algorithms.
Right. So it's getting there, but it's probably, it's like what you might read is probably not as far along as it is in the actual reality. Now it has
Yep.
aspirations to be performance marketing. It has aspirations. So what's possible? What are some of the things that you're seeing is kind of possible with targeting and the evolution of CTV and some of these things? And if you could, just for our viewers who maybe don't know, like, define some of the terms, because I think like we have a rare opportunity here where you can take us to school. Like, we might not know what ACR is, we might not know what some of these things are. So give us a little bit of context so we can all kind of learn along with you here.
Absolutely. So ACR, automated content recognition, is the IP level feed that OEMs, the original equipment manufacturers like LG and Samsung, can derive to help create products around targeting and measurement. But what it is a user level feed of what's happening on the screen. So, are they engaging in local programming? Are they watching an ad? Are they playing a video game? We'll kind of talk about some of the vectors of growth with ACR, but um, this data of understanding what folks are consuming and why allows you to create these products like we talked about, incremental reach or competitive conquesting, targeting, or a few other derivations. Um, the most OEM businesses like the LGs and the TV manufacturers began with this as the lifeblood, and it remains as such to this day. So that is a tool that is historically used for linear. One of
Mm.
the exciting things we're going to see in the TV data world is that being expanded to a couple new vectors. I think a lot about gaming. I think a lot about international. And I think a lot about streaming as directions that this data set, which is again historically linear, is going to be expanded to facilitate new data businesses and measurement businesses and overall fruit within the CTV ecosystem. So when I say ACR, I'm talking about that data set of what people are watching on the TV and what you can derive and build from that. So
Okay. And
yeah,
that happens at the device level,
absolutely.
essentially.
Yeah, so it's an IP level feed, um, and it tells you, it's a chip in the TV that sends back uh, a signature that then you on the server side need to match to create that map of who's watching what.
Mm.
Now, the reason why things like gaming and international haven't been as much of a focus is because the Rokus, the Samsungs, the Vizios, the LGs have to go out and purchase infrastructure and um, some of the back end data to create that. So they haven't focused on expanding it outside of linear. Now, as there's opportunities kind of across the board there, companies are making deeper investments and ACR is going to be applied to even more parts of the world. So that's an exciting, like, it's a little bit
Right.
specific, but it's CTV OEM. What's going to happen to uh, one of the core, again, lifebloods of how they do business. So that'll be
Right.
really exciting to watch on the micro level. But expanding out, it's really the ability to target and measure at the IP and user level. I mean, not user, household level, um,
Right.
to understand performance, and then, kind of like we talked about earlier, bridging this gap of digital demand and CTV supply.
Okay. And that just, for the layman, you've got this device and IP level information, which I think people kind of get, and that happens on in mobile as well. Um, it certainly, certainly happens in digital. You kind of have the device and you have the IP address kind of as anchor. So somebody's in the house watching that device. How much does the app that I'm watching? I'm assuming that matters as well, right? If I'm watching, on Netflix versus Prime Video versus YouTube TV, and then you have this kind of giant monster that is YouTube. And then maybe just give us some context as to the app people are using, as we see all this kind of activity in that space as well, with Paramount and Netflix and all this. But then also maybe out into like that's a piece of real estate now that people are kind of fighting for in a way that maybe they haven't before. So can you kind of
Oh,
zoom out into that level? Yeah.
from a home screen perspective, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I think the home screen is the most open field, blue ocean media opportunity. And I say this in meetings with brands and meetings with agencies all the time, that when I think about media markets that are underinvested and underpriced and have like a good 2 years ahead of them, like this is one that has to be on your radar.
Really? It's funny because I have an LG TV, and now this is where like the guy. How many people when you worked at LG was like, oh, I have an LG TV, but
Love it.
like
I love it.
my home screen is like I can't even figure out what's happening. It's like things are flashing all over the place, and I'm trying to go as fast as I can to get the other remote to hit the change source button to get to my Apple TV home screen. And
So
I'm still using like two remotes. Somebody needs to help me with this. But that
yes,
said,
yes. Yes.
but like so that LG home screen slash Apple TV home screen, you think those are massive opportunities or both?
Yes. And let's just talk about that comment for a second. Like, the LG home screen has a responsibility and opportunity to get
Right,
so good that you don't need to switch. It is kind of, I don't want to say silly, but it's a ton of work that you do to avoid using what's preloaded, right? Like
right, right,
that's how bad it is, but that's how big the gap and opportunity is.
right,
So
right,
I see like the plugins of the world, and the sticks of the world becoming less relevant as the LGs of the world take that responsibility more seriously, and they're able to do more
right,
software updates. So that's a bit of an opportunity for them to bridge that gap, so you don't have to switch. Um,
right,
but you're right. That's exactly what we're talking about. Uh, when you turn on your TV, you see this masthead hero unit that occupies like 50% of the pixels, and that's a brand's opportunity to share video messaging, to share images, to share QR codes, and all sorts of ways to engage with this real estate that is new. Like, people weren't allowed to buy it until, depending on the OEM, this year. So this is an opportunity where it's super high impact. There's tons of scale, right? Like LG had 200 million TVs worldwide. Samsung has more, right? So we're talking about hundreds of millions, and when you combine potentially billions plus of scale in a place where most brands haven't even heard of the ability to spend here. And
right,
2 years ago, if you had asked LG, they would have said no. Unless you're Netflix or one of these folks who is doing media entertainment, you're
right.
like progressive, not allowed. So that changing for LG 2 years ago, and just for Samsung at Ad Week 2020, Advertising Week 2025 in September, October, that's when they announced non-media entertainment's ability to buy
Huh.
screen inventory. It's like the very beginning of the opportunity. There's nowhere near as many buyers as there's going to be. Programmatic is just opening up. Like LG just allowed programmatic starting last year, as did a few other OEMs. Um, I think about this as, you know, the struggle is a seller will go into a meeting with an agency, and the question is this CTV or is this display? Is this
Right,
digital? And the answer is it's both. But in that kind of world, they need a specific direction one way or another. And
right,
when the LG people walk into the room, they say, "Okay, this is TV." And the home screen historically has gotten less airtime. That has
right,
changed. as it has with other OEMs, but this is a brand new media market, super high impact. And also, we'll talk about like the overlap with performance. It's super low session depth.
Right.
So when you're designing an algorithm to drive performance, one of the strongest indicators or levers of performance is how early on in the session are you able to hit someone with a message. There ain't nothing sooner than being like the home screen first thing you see in
Right.
someone's living room. So all those things are starting to converge with the accessibility and the scale and the fact that no one's heard of it. My money is that's going to be a really hot place.
Right. And that's the kind of entry point. I mean, that could be a premium advertising opportunity. When you look more at performance, I think the promise of a lot of CTV formats, there's a lot of different ways you can advertise now. And you see a lot of just like, hey, a lot of first time advertisers, I can get on CTV for $50 or whatever. Um, what's your kind of perspective on the ability, one, for anybody to come to CTV? Is it actually, in fact, that wide open? And if it is, or is it maybe there yet, or it's on a way to being there? What parts of that are kind of misunderstood, or maybe underhyped? Is just kind of just like, this actually does work, this actually doesn't work. How much of that promise is true? And probably a lot about different opportunities, and obviously there's been a lot of change in the programmatic space as well, whether it's TV Scientific and Pinterest or these other things that have happened recently.
Absolutely. One of the dichotomies though that I would call out when it comes to performance and CTV,
Hmm.
there's I think of kind of two different genuses of company that live within the same class, if I got that right.
Okay.
Um, and uh, in that world, um, you have the vibe.co's, which we mentioned. We have folks who allow accessibility with AI creation of creative
Hmm.
and media buying. You have the accessibility portion. Those folks tend to get lumped into performance, and I'll give it to them. The other side is like the TV scientific. So it's not
Okay.
as much about like a walk up being able to spend $50. It's more about someone who wants to use TV the same way they're using web and mobile app and mobile web and digital out of home and just to drive
Right.
sales of their product. I think
And
that
you
has
think those are distinct,
I
different? Like,
do. I
because
do.
for me, just again, casual observer, the marketing messaging, I get hit with a lot of ads for these companies, right? So like,
You're
Vibe and TV Scientific, the ads from 30,000 feet, because I'm flying over from up here, they're saying the same thing to me.
exactly. If you think about TV performance or performance CTV,
Uh-huh.
those two worlds are getting lumped together.
Okay,
But
so they're converging.
yeah, and to your original point of how much room is there, the answer is a ton and on both sides of that equation. So
Hmm.
if you look at TV Scientific, which was just acquired by Pinterest, um, that world of applying algorithmic buying to drive towards a CPA, um,
Hmm.
there's going to be 5 or 6 competitors at that trough in 18 months. So the fact that TV Scientific makes for one less in the public market, I think there's nothing but room. And then, if you follow the Vibe team, things are accelerating quickly, and it's a lot about bringing on board new demand that you can scale into TV for the first time. So
Right.
they're both on catching the same current of performance CTV, but one is about bringing SMB demand, anyone can buy TV, and the other is about performance buyers who can buy TV. So it's like,
Right.
do you want to sell 1,000 people $1 campaign or one campaign for $1,000? And those are both viable opportunities that are worth investing in the next two
Right.
years.
So it'd be like me trying to explain AdWords to you on Google in like 2004 or whatever. It's like, it's broad,
Yeah,
right? Like AdWords, it's like, and it's Google, right? So like, if you think about how vast like Google advertising is today. So like, this is really a spectrum, right,
exactly.
situation where you're going to have this spectrum of opportunities, and it's probably early days. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, and even when I was at LG and we were having this conversation, it's important because you have to take this idea and this strategy into a product. And is
Mm,
that product about making it easy to launch a campaign and run a campaign? Or is it about making the campaign perform as ridiculously good as possible? Those are different resourcing paths. And it was really important to me that the team had that conversation out loud, which is they're both valiant efforts that are going to yield a lot of upside in the future, but pick we have to do them separately. We can do both, but each
mm,
of them is a separate deployment of resources and slightly different strategic direction.
right. Interesting. And so, how much do you feel the format? So, let's, because I want to ask you about creative, but let's, before we get into the creative, a little bit more about the format. So, you've got one of the interesting things that makes, and as I exist in this space, as well, it's the fragmentation of devices as well. So people are just trying to figure out the TV screen, right? And then we just talked about that. People can consume this content, in a lot of different places. And it might be the same piece of content that they might consume in 3 different places, whatever. I could
Right?
be on my laptop, I could be on my phone, or whatever. It's like, as an advertiser or as a platform, like your Vibe or TV Scientific or Mountain or whoever or Paramount, like you're trying to hit all these places. Let's take explain to us how people are kind of, and LG is only one aspect because they're only dealing with the one spot. How do we
Even if
deal with this?
Even if you just zoom in on just some of the home screen and if we
Right,
talk about some of the assets in that world, you have screensaver ad units, you have pause
right,
ads, you have even just these various, we'll call them home screen creative executions. There's a microcosm of this problem just there, which is I have some set of digital assets that I need
right,
reformatted to fit these, you know, number of amorphous shapes.
right.
Um,
And I've got to, if I try to do it for mobile and put it on a TV, it's not going to work. We see it like people cut and pasting the soundtrack of a TV ad and sticking it in a podcast ad. That doesn't work. Yeah. So like, yeah. How are people kind of managing this or kind of trying to grasp it? Because you want to make it easy to advertise on CTV, and I want to have AI make my ad in 10 minutes, but I've got to put it in different formats. I imagine a lot of things can go awry.
it's really a tooling challenge today. So you see
Totally.
this type of tooling emerge as an independent type tool that's helping creative teams insert their assets and then deliver regardless and QA regardless of platform. Those types of SaaS businesses exist. But then you also think of companies in the programmatic space like a Triple Lift historically or upstarts like Open Glass who are focusing on applying that same ideology that we just talked about on the SSP or exchange side. So it's kind of
Okay.
built into the product on the media side such that you can give them the assets or one creative that they can then scale to a variety of media places. So uh, you can kind of choose, do you want to in-house that as a SaaS tool, or do you want somebody at an SSP to do that on your behalf? Um, it depends on the brand, but so far that has been approached from a tooling perspective, either third party or via a supply partner.
Okay. And I can only imagine the amount of different companies that could be starting in this space that we haven't heard of yet, or that people are just thinking about. Or some people might hear you going through this and get an idea of something to do. Um, so, how do I'm just curious, just being a person who's creative myself and like looking at ad creative, and I played around a little bit with AI ad creation, which as a whole, that's a whole podcast in and of itself.
Yeah.
Um,
Fair.
but how do you see the ads themselves? Let's just start there. Like if I'm creating content for advertising, there's all these different situations from the home screen to a mobile phone. How does this get managed, and where do you see this heading?
One of the not challenges, but like identity problems that this opportunity has is that the home screen and CTV can be a performance vehicle and drive sales. It can also be a brand vehicle and drive messaging and continuation of a story that you're trying to tell, right? If you think about a
Right.
pause ad, it could be a QR code that scans to, download an app, or it could be, a follow-up to a 30-second ad that, Allstate just had about mayhem. And then there's a follow-up still that takes, there's sequential messaging and components within the brand story that these new media types can play. So what I've seen people be most successful with is kind of picking one of the avenues, right? Like, am I doing brand targeting and brand measurements? Am I doing brand lift? Am I doing eye tracking? Am I doing attention? Which is very important for Allstate when they're understanding how impactful mayhem is. And then you turn to the other side, who cares about a CPI, a cost per install, or a CPA, a cost per action, something that's sold within there. So it's really picking what you want the avenue to be for you and where it fits within your media plan over the course of the year. Um, and then just know, one of the things that makes this so interesting is you can apply that diversity, right? Like, two campaigns next to each other, one can do brand lift and can do attention, and the one next to it can care completely about cost per install, and both be successful in the same media bidded ecosystem. That's where I think the future's going. But to your point, creative has to be tooled to a place where that's seamless.
Yeah, that right there is actually a phenomenal perspective, because I think there's this kind of two things. It's like, I can't have art and science together is like one of them, or I can't have it's peanut butter and jelly or whatever. It's like brand awareness and like performance, or brand lift, and just like all I care about is brand lift, or all I care about is attribution. And someone asked me once at a conference, should I do brand lift or attribution? And I was like, both. Right? Like,
Yeah.
it's just when you, please God, that's where you see it going. Cause I do think that's one of the things that makes this channel so intriguing. Like, it doesn't have to be one or the other. And two things can be true at the same time. It's like, they're not like, if you're creating brand awareness, you can also create purchase intent. Like, they're kind of connected. So it's like, I don't know. Do you have some kind of utopian solution for this that maybe you can just get us there? Can you get us 5 years and hit the fast forward button? Because I feel like we've got a ways to go on this.
So the problem, the image that keeps coming into my head, and it's mad corny. It's like a Kung Fu Panda 2 reference, where like, everyone opens up the dragon scroll, and it's like, whatever is looking back at you is what the right thing is. And I think about that a little bit as it's applied to this problem, and why we still have such an opportunity in these media types is because people don't really know how to define it. And now that folks are coming with really specific product market fits, you can buy it two different ways within your media plan for two different things. But it's just an evolution of the marketplace catching up. So we got to keep tooling that. But that was the image that I just couldn't get rid of.
This is first off, Kung Fu Panda 2 was bound to get referenced somehow. But no, but it's really true, because it's that mirror, right? It's like, and I think having that type of paradigm where I can do both, right? Like, that creates, to me, a massive growth opportunity for advertisers. Because I don't think people knew what internet. Hey, look, I lived through the days of an ad banner on a website, pre-paid search, right? And so and no one knew what internet advertising was to be. And over a 5 to 7 year period, we hit a saturation point. I mean, it went from here to here. And then the same with social and mobile. You in your backstory touched on all these things, right? Imagine what WeatherBug started as to what WeatherBug became, just as an example. This is going to be fun to watch. And I think we're definitely not there yet, but I think this idea that the campaign is whatever you feel it needs to be, and there's opportunity there. The hard part is measurement and creative. It always is, because creative has such a big impact on the outcome, the creative itself. And then in a world of severe fragmentation, this is going to be tough, because the internet had the benefit of being relatively linear. So I'm curious to hear your take on the fact that attribution is a dark art when everything's connected. And look, we're in the attribution business. Getting last touch, when somebody's hearing these things in 7 different places, it's a challenge. I don't know how I'm curious to hear your perspective on that.
If you think about a media business like LG's, when we were managing measurement partnerships, we had 13 subcategories of measurement with 31 participants within there. So as opposed to your point, like the linear cookie-based world of
Right.
digital, it's not like that.
Right.
So it is, I think there is so much momentum here. And as these folks in the performance world who are so used to buying 320 by 50s and what they think of as performance being bled into this extraordinarily large ecosystem with tons of room,
Mm.
there's going to be so much blossoming in the next 18 months in CTV at
Right.
that intersection you just talked about.
Yeah, and it's exciting. It's the Wild West on some level, but it's also like, it's exciting to be. I think we're on the verge of something. I think the connection between digital and some of this plumbing, and I think the devices and the formats and just the behavior. Like people have an expectation of I can buy things this way. Like I can buy an ad programmatically for virtually anything, and I think that's still a relatively new thing. So
Right.
we're coming up on CES in a couple weeks.
Yes.
I think we'll probably be live with this podcast that week
Oh,
or close
great.
to it. I can't control that, so don't quote me on that. But it'll probably be around then. So this is a CES is a time of year when people talk about new things. So give us I have to ask the obligatory. What do you see coming? And what do you think's coming around the bend? And what are you excited about over the next couple months?
Absolutely. So I think of three big trends coming into 2026. Number
Okay.
one, we just talked about it, that intersection of mobile performance and CTV and home screen. So that world, the TV scientifics and way more investment and focus and blossoming of companies, that's number one that I'm really excited to see that development.
Okay.
Number two, um, is the world of free ad supported TV, which is relatively new when it comes to consumption type, um, is going to continue to scale. So in a world that was historically SVOD, subscription video on demand, that then moved to AVOD, advertising based video on demand, we're now in this world of fast free ad supported television that, is quite possibly the lowest barrier to entry, most analogous to linear. It has crushed it in 2025. And I think we're going to continue to see folks move from linear based cable packages that they're paying over to, or SVOD services over to free ad supported TV, where it's analogous from a how do I consume it perspective. Um, but it's technically a new media form that media plans have to move to. So if you're
Okay.
not talking about fast with your agency, I think it's going to continue to be the fastest growing CTV medium.
Okay, of all those acronyms, FAST is definitely the catchiest. So who
Yes.
are like we just actually had Tubi on, like Nicole
Yeah.
Parlapiano, who's the CMO of Tubi 2 episodes ago. They can say, I guess it may be a dumb question, but is that considered fast?
Yes. Well, so Tubi has fast, but also an AVOD business. So if you want,
So it can be both.
it is a free service. Um, so it's free, and then you exactly you can be both.
Right. So what are some other examples of fast, or a good example, would you say?
So a good example of fast is the user experience when you turn on your TV. There's going to be an LG channels or a Samsung TV Plus or a
Okay.
Vizio Watch Free or Vizio Watch.
Got it.
Um, what it looks like is that scrolling EPG that we're used to in cable that shows what's happening on each of these
Right.
channels, but it's an app preloaded onto the TV. So the
Right. And that can
OEMs,
be at the device, at the OEM level on the device, kind of like
yeah,
the old Comcast. I just would just have my cable.
yes, exactly.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
but it has to exist as an app on the TV.
Got
So
it.
so it still exists in that way,
So
but
Tubi's kind of a step removed from that, because that's still, while it is free, it's still an app.
it kind of
It's
depends on how you're consuming Tubi. If you're watching a movie and there's ads in between, that's AVOD. But if it's like
okay.
a linear setup where you're watching channels, that's going to be fast.
All right, got it. We might need another episode with you to
For sure. Yeah, it's like
get through all this. I'm gonna need more like easy references. Okay, so
are
got
you
it.
like watching it like a TV show, or are you watching it like a movie where you can pause?
Got it. Okay.
that kind of thing.
All right. So, all right, we got your two things. What's the third?
Okay. So the third one is we're seeing a lot of regulatory poking on local broadcast and local TV. And I think that poking is going to be successful, and we're going to continue to see mergers and acquisitions in the linear broadcast local TV space, because they're now able to aspire to critical mass. So with like the Nexstar Tegna merger potentially going through, I don't think it has been officially approved yet. That kind of opens up the door for these companies who have been forced to be artificially small to start creating ad products and systems big enough to scale across multiple markets. That was a regulation that is being challenged and potentially removed, and
Right.
that's going to allow this to be a year of local TV resurgence. And according to our friends at Ad Impact, it's looking like it's going to be the biggest spending year of midterms ever from a political season. And local TV is a huge recipient of
Huge. Right.
political TV dollars. So I think 2026 is going to be a breakout year for local TV.
Right. No, and that the underpinning and connectivity to reach those places, it's like it's a matter of that seems inevitable at some point. I think you might be you're probably right about that. You're probably right about a lot of things, and that's probably one of them. So just kind of in wrapping it up, this has been educational. I think for our audience, if you're an advertiser, if you're a marketer, if you're coming to this podcast curious about advertising and creative and connected television, I think there's a lot of content in here that you'll find educational and also exciting. I think this is going to be an exciting year. I think this reminds me a lot of kind of early days of the internet. And I think we're in another cycle here where we're seeing it happen before our eyes. And there's days where you wake up in the morning and by the afternoon, things may have changed dramatically. Where can people find you? Where can they look for you? Where's people are saying this, wow, I want to go talk to that guy. I want to learn more. Where's the best place to go find Mike Brooks?
I love me some LinkedIn. So just reach out on LinkedIn. I would love to connect and share. I share some of the stories and research and things that I partner on there. So find me there. And like you said, this is the second or third inning in a really interesting game. So I think what we see over the next 18 months in spaces like programmatic, CTV, and new ad units and performance, each of these are going to be their own set of competitors. And it's so early. It's a super exciting time.
All right. We'll have to schedule you for like a quarterly check-in. I think this in 2026. Yeah, this has been awesome. Thank you so much, Mike.
Fabulous. Thanks so much for having me.